Last summer was strange. I was 32 years old, working late nights as a graphic designer in my cozy bungalow. I loved the quiet after my breakup. But when thunderstorms rolled in, things took a turn. One stormy night stands out. The wind howled like a wild animal. I sat at my desk, focused on my work. Suddenly, my internet flickered. It was like something was trying to connect with me, and I didn't like it. Rain tapped on the window in odd patterns. My heart raced. It felt almost like the rain was trying to talk. Every time I glanced outside, I half expected to see someone. But there was nothing. Just darkness and the haunting sounds of the storm. I struggled to concentrate, but the patterns kept distracting me. As the storms arrived more often, it got worse. I noticed the rain would sometimes tap in time with faint laughter. I convinced myself it was kids acting wild in the rain, but deep down, I knew something felt off. The laughter echoed, swirling around the house with the wind. I checked outside, but there was no one there. Just me and shadows dancing outside. After every storm, I found burnt-out candles on my porch. I didn't light any. Maybe my neighbors were messing with me. I laughed it off, but my stomach knotted. Was I losing my mind? Those shadows in my yard made my skin crawl. They flitted among the trees. Right when I thought I saw a face, it disappeared. My breath quickened, and I looked away, convincing myself it was just my imagination. One evening, the rain grew louder. The tapping was relentless now. There was no laughter, just my pounding heart. A chill settled over the room, and it felt like someone was right behind me. I didn't want to look. Fear rooted me to my chair. Finally, I glanced over my shoulder. The darkness stared back at me. Maybe I had just been working too hard, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there. Every night meant more second-guessing. Were those sounds from kids or something much darker? The moments grew more intense. Then, one stormy night, I heard it, a whisper. "Megan." I froze. Every hair on the back of my neck stood up. My heart raced as I turned. The room felt empty, yet alive. A shiver ran down my spine. I wanted to run, but I didn't. I thought I was imagining things. I couldn't remember anything feeling this real. The laughter returned, louder now. It sent waves of panic coursing through me. I was all alone in my house, surrounded by shadows that seemed to come closer with every clap of thunder. The last thing I heard before I lost my grip on reality was that laughter. It echoed in my mind like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't figure out what it was. All I could do was sit there, paralyzed, wondering what was lurking just beyond the trees. The next day, I couldn't shake the worry from last night. I spent the morning pacing around my house, questioning everything I had heard and seen. I picked up my phone and texted my best friend, Jamie, hoping to find some comfort. "Hey, do you want to grab coffee later?" I typed. She replied quickly, her usual enthusiasm shining through. "Absolutely. I need to hear more about your wild storm stories." That made me chuckle, but I wasn't in the mood for humor. I needed her support. When I finally met her at our favorite cafe, I started explaining everything: the whispers, the laughter, and those burning candles. Jamie listened intently, a look of concern growing on her face. "You're not just overthinking this? Maybe it's just some kids causing mischief?" she asked. "It feels different," I said, fidgeting with my cup. "It's like something is watching me. Like it knows me." Jamie frowned. "Maybe you just need to take a break. Get outside, go for a walk. You've been working too much." After our chat, I decided to head home, hoping that clearing my mind would help. Still, when I drove back through the loop of trees leading to my street, a strange sense of dread filled my chest. The sky was darkening again, thick clouds rolling in like a heavy curtain. As I parked in front of my bungalow, a feeling washed over me that something was off. I stepped out and noticed a few more burnt-out candles on my porch. How had I not seen those before? I walked closer, examining them. They felt unnaturally warm, as if they had just been extinguished. I shuddered that I went inside, flipping the lights on and checking every room as if expecting someone to jump out at me. I didn't see anything, but the growing storm outside loomed large in my mind. I tried to focus on work, but my heart raced. The familiar tapping began once more, louder than before. Then it hit me, sounds were overlapping. Tapping mixed with laughter, but it seemed different this time. The laughter felt closer, more sinister, as if it was mocking me. One sound ebbed away, and another one came in, all syncing with the relentless rain that I pulled my phone out, ready to call Jamie if things started to get worse. As I was about to dial, everything went dark. The power just cut off. No lights, no sounds. Just the storm outside. That's when I realized the laughter had stopped, that a chilling silence wrapped around me. I sat there in the darkness, holding my breath. The air felt thick and stifling. My heart thudded against my ribs as I searched for a flashlight, wishing desperately for the lights to flicker back on. That I finally found a small flashlight in a drawer, clicked it on, and swept the beam across the room. Nothing. Just shadows. But then I heard it again, the whisper, softer this time but unmistakable. Megan, my blood ran cold. Instinct kicked in. I needed to leave, to get out of that house. But the moment I took a step, the temperature in the room dropped. I froze, feeling an icy breath at my neck. That's when I turned and saw the outline of something looming behind me. I couldn't breathe. What had come to claim me? I gasped, stumbling back against the wall, my instincts yelling at me to run. But my legs felt stuck in place. The shape in front of me was dark and vague, but I could feel its presence like a weight bearing down. It was just as I turned to make my escape that the figure seemed to shift, taking a step toward me. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. There was no answer, just an unsettling silence that seemed to swallow my words. The darkness felt alive, pulsing around me. I swung the flashlight in its direction, praying to catch a glimpse. The beam cut through the shadows, illuminating an empty corner of the room. I blinked, but my heart sank. It was gone. I had to move. I rushed for the door, but as I reached for the knob, a loud bang echoed from the kitchen. Heavy and aggressive, it sent chills down my spine. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Was someone in the house, or was it some spirit playing tricks? The noise came again, and I finally turned. Heart racing, I carefully crept toward the kitchen. Each step made the floor creak beneath me. I aimed the flashlight ahead, my hands shaking. The beam danced over empty countertops and dark corners. I reached the kitchen, but it was just as I left it, quiet and still. My mind raced through every horror movie I ever watched. What if I was about to discover something that should have stayed hidden? Just as I was about to call for help, the power flickered back on, and the kitchen lights cast a warm glow around me. I blinked, disoriented. Then I saw a small black notebook on the counter. I didn't remember leaving that there. It wasn't mine. I edged closer, wary of whatever it contained. My apprehension soared. What was this doing in my kitchen? I flipped it open, seeing pages filled with hurried handwriting. Words jumped out at me, "The storms bring them out," and "Listen to the whispers, they know you." My stomach twisted. Had someone been watching me? Was this connected to what I had been experiencing? The sound of thunder cracked outside, and the notebook trembled in my hands. I set it down and grabbed my phone, hoping to call Jamie. Just then, a sharp knock echoed from the back door. I didn't want to turn around. My instincts screamed at me to stay put, to stay safe. But something compelled me to approach. Slowly, I walked toward the door, each footstep a battle against my fear. As I reached for the doorknob, the unmistakable sound of laughter rang out again, far louder this time. The laughter echoed in my mind, ringing like a twisted bell. I felt my breath catch. I turned away from the door and ran right back into the living room, away from whatever was beyond that threshold. But then I saw it again, the shadow darting just out of my sight. And I knew whatever had been lying in wait for me wasn't done yet. What awaited me in the depths of the house? I stood frozen in the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. The faint echoes of that laughter lingered in the air like an unwelcome guest. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, hidden just out of sight. Taking a deep breath, I moved back toward the kitchen. The notebook felt like a puzzle piece that wouldn't fit, gnawing at my thoughts. What storm? What whispers? My fingers brushed across its pages again, desperate for clarity. I needed to understand. As I scanned the haphazard notes, a word caught my eye: changelings. My breath hitched. My grandmother used to tell stories about them, creatures that would take the place of lost loved ones. I had always dismissed those tales as mere folklore. But now, they twisted and turned in my mind, making my skin crawl. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. I shivered, my breath visible in the dim kitchen light. I turned, glancing at the door, half expecting something to come barging in. But all I saw was the rain dancing against the windows. Then, a crash erupted from the living room. I jumped, my pulse racing. Something had fallen. I rushed back, the flashlight beam shaking in my hand. When I entered, I saw the bookshelves had toppled over, their contents scattered like a messy confession. I hadn't even noticed anything was out of place. "Hello." My voice sounded small amidst the chaos. No response. I stepped carefully over the strewn books, my heart racing. Was I really alone, or was someone hiding in the shadows? As I bent down to pick up a few volumes, I noticed an old photograph beneath the couch. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. It was a picture of my family from a summer long ago, laughter frozen in time. But there was something wrong about it. I squinted, realizing that a shadow loomed behind us, an unmistakable figure just out of focus. I gasped and dropped the photo, retreating back to the kitchen. My mind raced. I suddenly felt the urge to leave the house, to escape the storm of memories and shadows flooding my mind. But I couldn't just run away. What would happen to the notebooks? The figure? Just then, the back door rattled. I whipped around, my heart in my throat. A cleaved shadow stood just outside the door, and I could see its eyes, dark and hollow, staring straight at me through the rain-soaked glass. It felt as though those eyes could see inside my very soul. Then a loud bang resonated, and the door jolted against its frame. I stumbled back, the walls of the kitchen feeling closer, more suffocating. The whispers from the notebook surged in my mind, a cacophony of voices: "Do not listen too closely. Do not let them enter." I turned and bolted toward the front door, knowing I had to get out before whatever was out there forced its way in. But as I reached for the doorknob, the laughter returned close and sinister, and I froze. I couldn't leave. Not yet that I needed answers, and whatever had been hiding was ready to show itself. I gripped the doorknob, my heart pounding like a drum. The laughter twisted in my ears, and my hands shook. I couldn't just open the door and run. If I did, what was waiting outside could slip in. My feet felt glued to the floor as I fought to suppress the urge to scream. Just then, a creaking sound came from the hallway. It was faint but unmistakable, like footsteps gliding across the floorboards. I turned slowly, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, revealing nothing. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was moving around the house, someone very much not invited. That I took a cautious step back, heart racing, fueled by instinct. My gaze darted to the kitchen window, where the rain continued to batter against the glass. The wind howled, and the shadows danced under the street lamp outside, but I was stuck in a pit of growing dread. That I returned my focus to the notebook on the table. I needed answers, and suddenly, a sense of desperation overwhelmed me. I could feel my pulse quicken. I stepped back into the kitchen, my eyes darting around for anything that could help clarify this nightmare. I flipped the pages, searching for the section on changelings, hoping for a clue. Then I found it. A handwritten note fell out from between the pages. It was in my grandmother's spidery script: changelings can take on the form of any person. To reveal them, you must ask questions only the real person would know. My stomach twisted. The laughter echoed again, this time mingling with the sound of thunder, a threatening bass note in the background. My thoughts raced. I had seen the photo with the shadow behind us. It was like a warning, a reminder of what could happen if I let the wrong thing in, that I was alone in this house, with no one but a possible imposter lingering outside. But who was it? I needed to know. I made a decision: I would face whatever this was. I walked back to the door, steadying my breath and bracing myself for the worst. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice wavering. "What do you want?" Silence. Then, a soft knock echoed through the wood of the door, gentle yet insistent. "Let me in," came a voice. Low and familiar. It sounded just like my mother. A chill ran through me as memories flashed: her laughter, her warmth. But doubt tugged at my mind. She had died 2 years ago. "Mom. Is that really you?" My voice cracked, fear battling with a flicker of hope. The shadows outside shifted, and I caught a glimpse of movement. "Please," the voice urged again. "It's cold out here." I felt my heart race. "What happened to you?" I demanded, pressing my back against the door. "Tell me something only you would know." Silence hung in the air, making the thunder seem distant. And then the voice answered. But it wasn't the answer I expected. "Why would you need to know that?" The finality in her tone made my blood run cold. I fumbled for the deadbolt, wrestling with the knob as panic set in. I had to make a choice: trust my instincts or follow the voice of a ghost. Before I could make a decision, I heard a muffled cry from behind me, as if something had moved in the shadows of the kitchen. I spun around, the flashlight beam cutting through the kitchen's dark corners. My heart pounded in my chest, an urgent thrum pushing me to act. The noises had been soft, almost like a call for help, but I knew better than to assume the best. I had spent the last few days diving into folklore that warned of deception, especially during storms. "Hello." I called out, my voice quivering as I stepped deeper into the kitchen. The room felt colder, the air thickening around me. The muffled cries echoed in my ears again, coming from the pantry. I hesitated, glancing back at the door. The familiar voice outside beckoned, promising warmth and safety, but the noises inside called to my curiosity. That I walked slowly, a sense of dread gnawing at my gut. With a shaky hand, I opened the pantry door. The darkness felt alive, swirling around me like a living thing. My flashlight illuminated the shelves, filled with cans and jars, and then I saw it. A shadow flickered at the back, small, crouching. That I jumped back, my pulse racing. "Who is there?" I shouted, forcing my voice to stay steady. Silence swallowed my question, leaving only the sound of rain pounding against the house. "Let me out," a voice whimpered. The words chilled me. It was faint, delicate, but I didn't want to melt into sympathy. My grandmother's note replayed in my mind: ask questions only the real person would know. "Why are you hiding?" I pressed, trying to hold on to the thread of reason amidst the chaos. "What is your favorite story to tell me in the summer? Please, just let me out. I don't belong here." The voice implored, sounding desperate. That I felt my resolve wavering. The urgency in the voice tugged at my heart. But I couldn't forget the laughter, nor the sinister feeling lurking just behind the perceived warmth. I took a deep breath and stepped closer, forcing the tension in my shoulders to drop. "Tell me something I wouldn't know about you. Something only you could answer." The response was breathy, shaking. I can't." I furrowed my brow. My instincts screamed that I couldn't trust it, whatever it was. I backed away carefully, surveying the room one more time before returning my full attention to the door. The voice outside continued its quiet pleading. I still felt that pull, a desire mixed with fear. As I moved back toward the door, the kitchen became quiet. Too quiet. The thunder outside seemed to fade, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Then, I noticed something shifting in the darkness behind me again. My heart jumped when I saw a pair of eyes reflecting the flashlight beam. Someone was inside the pantry, the figure crouched lower, its features obscured. Panic surged through me, and I bolted to the door. My fingers fumbled with the lock. Every second felt like an eternity. Before I could get the door open, the figure sprang forward, a shadow among shadows. And then everything went dark. I woke up gasping, disoriented. My head throbbed, and the taste of damp air filled my mouth. The flashlight lay beside me, its beam flickering weakly. I blinked, trying to orient myself, and realized I was on the kitchen floor, not far from the pantry. The thunder had returned, rumbling loudly as if it were mocking my fear. The pantry door stood ajar, creaking slightly. I hesitated to stand, my stomach churning with anxiety. My heart pounded again, echoing in my ears. What had I seen? What had happened just before everything went dark? Panic gripped me. I pushed myself to my feet and steadied myself against the counter. My fingers brushed over the cool marble as I tried to calm my racing thoughts. The world outside was a blur of rain, but something inside the pantry demanded my attention. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. There was no response. I peered into the pantry, the darkness now feeling even more ominous. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to follow the voice outside. But curiosity mixed with dread kept me rooted in place. That I stepped toward the doorway, trying to see if there was any hint of movement. That's when I saw it, a faint ripple in the shadows, almost like a quick intake of breath. I took a cautious step back, the memory of those eyes flashing in my mind. Then I noticed something on the floor. A small, dark object poked out from under the shelves. I knelt down, my flashlight beam landing on it. It was a worn-out stuffed bear covered in dust, its button I cracked. I reached for it, my hand shaking. This was no ordinary bear, it matched the description of the one my little cousin had lost during last summer's storm. She had cried for hours when it went missing. Had this thing been here all along? A chill settled in my bones. The voice from earlier flickered in my mind, begging to be let out. That wasn't a coincidence. I needed to know if this bear could answer my questions. I pulled it closer, brushing away the grime. And then I spotted something else, a small tag beneath its arm. Taking a deep breath, I pulled it free and read the words aloud, the echo of my voice filling the kitchen. "Find me under the storm." A tight knot formed in my stomach. What did that mean? My heartbeat quickened again, but I felt a strange pull toward the back of the pantry. The sensation of being watched returned, heavier this time. I didn't know if I was ready for whatever this storm had in store. But I glanced back at the door, still ajar, dark and inviting. The voice outside was gone, replaced by an unsettling stillness. My gut twisted as I turned from the pantry and faced the house. It felt like a shadow lurked around every corner, a sinister whisper carried by the wind that I was alone, and the storm was still raging outside. But I wasn't quite sure if I was alone inside. The kitchen seemed to hold its breath. I felt the weight of the silence pressing in on me, making everything feel sharper, each creak of the floor, each distant roll of thunder. I tightened my grip on the bear, wanting it to offer me some comfort. Instead, its damp, musty smell only heightened my unease. The shadows in the pantry deepened, and I forced myself to step back toward the door. I hadn't even taken a full step when a whisper broke through the stillness. "Help me." It was faint, almost lost in the sound of the rain. I shut my eyes tightly, trying to convince myself I had imagined it. But no, it was real. The voice was calling to me, soft yet loaded with urgency. "Who's there?" I managed to stutter, my voice barely above a whisper. Nothing replied. The air grew thick, suffocating. I could feel the seconds stretching, testing my resolve. It was more than just the bear's tag echoing in my mind. I needed to know what I was dealing with. If this thing the bear was somehow connected to whatever had happened in the pantry, I had to figure it out. With a deep breath, I powered on the flashlight and directed its beam deeper into the dark. As I stepped cautiously back toward the pantry, I noticed a slight shift in the shadows, like something was moving just beyond my sight. My pulse quickened as I crept back and kicked a few scattered items at the base of the shelf in an impulsive attempt to stir whatever lurked there. An old can fell over, and it struck the ground with a heavy clatter. I flinched and braced myself, expecting something to leap out. The only response was the steady drum of rain against the roof. Then, the flashlight flickered again. I cursed under my breath, tapping it to bring back the light. Instead, everything went dark for a heartbeat. In that moment, it felt like the world had swallowed me whole. I could hear my heart thudding in my chest. Just as I opened my mouth to cry out, the light returned, illuminating a figure in the pantry. My breath caught in my throat. A shape stood amongst the shadows, barely discernible but definitely there. A child, no older than 7, with wild hair and wide glassy eyes, that same strangely familiar gaze I'd seen earlier. Startled, I backed away, my hands gripping the bear so tight my knuckles went white. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice cracking from both fear and disbelief. The figure didn't answer, but its lips curled into a sad smile. Confusion swirled within me. Was this a trick of the storm? Or had I stumbled over something sinister? I can help you," I stammered, as the weight of its stare bore down on me. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the child turned, disappearing deeper into the pantry, leaving nothing but an empty space behind. I blinked, my senses racing. This wasn't a game. I felt it in my gut. The weight of something dreadful was lurking, just beneath the surface. The bear tag's message echoed in my ears, "Find me under the storm." What was hidden beneath this storm? And more importantly, what awaited me if I followed? I steeled myself. I was not ready to leave without answers. With the remnants of courage fueling my resolve, I took a step forward into the pantry. The pantry's shadows loomed as I stepped inside, casting dark shapes that twisted and shifted in the dim light. My heart pounded in my chest. The air felt electric, thick with the promise of something unsettling. I pushed deeper, aiming the flashlight in every corner, searching for the child, or at least a sign of where it had gone. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding strained in the tight space. The only response was the relentless drumming of rain and the distant rumble of thunder. I waved the flashlight like a lifeline through the gloom. Suddenly, an old box caught my eye, half hidden behind a bag of flour. Its edges were frayed, the label peeling. I crouched down and pulled it into the light. Dust motes danced around me, and I hesitated. Should I open it? Curiosity battled with fear. I decided to look inside. The box creaked as I lifted the lid. My breath caught. Inside lay an array of faded photograph snapshots of children, each one wearing the same vacant smile that echoed the child I had just seen. I froze. Had they all been here? Was this some sort of shrine or collection? I flipped through them, heart racing, until I stopped at one photo, a girl with the same wild hair and glassy eyes. Something about her expression felt hauntingly familiar, like a reflection of the child I'd just encountered. I felt a cold chill snake up my spine. Where had these pictures come from? And why did they seem connected to the storm? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. Just then, a loud crash echoed from outside, making me jump. I nearly dropped the box. The shadows around me felt alive, twisting, breathing. I felt the weight of the storm pressing in, urging me to retreat. But I couldn't. The urge to understand what was happening drew me deeper, that I forced myself back to the pantry's entrance, heart pounding. Outside, flashes of lightning illuminated the garden, revealing something or someone about to approach the house. My skin prickled. I had to see who it was that I moved to the window, careful to stay out of sight. My eyes widened in disbelief. A figure stood there, dark and indistinct against the raging storm. I could barely make out a familiar shape, a child, slender and small, just like the one from the pantry. "Help me," it whispered again, barely louder than the wind. Panic surged through me. This was no longer just a strange occurrence. Something was wrong, something deeply unsettling. I felt a mix of fear and determination. I had to know what it wanted, but with each step closer, uncertainty gnawed at me, then everything shifted. The lights flickered, and my flashlight sputtered out. In that darkness, the whispers grew louder, pulling me back into the pantry. "Help me!" instinct took over, and I backed away from the window, barely controlling my breathing. Whatever was out there, it was drawing me in. I had to decide, would I answer its call, or was it time to run? I stood at the crossroads of fear and curiosity, grappling with the decision that could change everything. What awaited me under this storm? I had to find out. With a final glance at the photos, I took a deep breath and stepped back into the pantry, ready to face whatever was lurking in the shadows. I stumbled backward, instinct taking over as adrenaline coursed through me. I needed to escape, to shut out the echoes of laughter and pleading that now filled my head. I turned on my heel, ready to break free from the whirlpool of shadows engulfing the pantry, prepared to reach for the door and bolt outside into the storm. But as I grasped the doorknob, a sudden chill swept through the air, halting me in my tracks. The heaviness of the air thickened, almost palpable. I felt it pressing against my chest, the shadows flickering ominously. Moments turned into eternity as I wrestled with the urge to flee. "No time for fear," I muttered to myself, my heart hammering against my ribs. I could feel the child's presence out there, somewhere beyond the door. But there was still that pull, the looming sense that whatever lingered within those walls was a mirror to some hidden truth. "Help me," the voice carried again, curling around me like smoke. My grip tightened on the door. Perhaps I should listen, perhaps I should find out what awaited should I choose this path. It was a gamble, one fueled by desperation and the hope that if I followed the voice, maybe I could unearth something darker than I had ever imagined, or perhaps the truth that I feared. That I closed my eyes for a moment, hearing the rain lash at the windows like frantic hands. With a deep breath, I twisted the knob and flung the door open. The hallway beyond felt alive, shadows stretching and writhing as I stepped through, the storm howling outside like a beast in pain. I could feel the energy crackling, urging me forward. That I strained to hear the voice again, drowning out my own frantic thoughts. I moved quickly past the agitated atmosphere of the kitchen and peered out into the living room. To my shock, it was almost serene in here, the shadows retreating as though acknowledging my resolve. The figures that once seemed ominous felt distant, just remnants of fear I had conjured. My chest eased, but not fully. I crossed the threshold into the living room. Everything felt eerily quiet until a sharp crack of thunder brought me back to reality. I veered towards the window, where the rain poured relentlessly. And there, beyond the curtain wall of droplets, stood that haunting figure again, the same wild-haired child, staring back, waiting for me to respond. "Help me," it whimpered again, and I felt the pang of hope mixed with dread clench in my stomach. Was it truly a call for aid? Or something darker, something preying on my heartache? I felt the conflict curling at the edges of my mind, but before I could decide, the child pointed toward the woods at the edge of my yard. I sensed urgency there, an invitation to uncover a hidden truth. Yet with each growl of thunder, I recalled the ominous notebook filled with desperate notes, the laughter that could easily shatter an already frayed mind, and memories of my mother. The very ground I stood upon felt clouded with mystery, each element fighting against clarity. With renewed hesitation, I stepped away from the window, feeling a magnetic pull from the door again. Could I truly face this creature? But as I wavered, the laughter returned louder, echoing like thunderclaps across the house, twisting my stomach into knots. In that moment, I realized that there was no escaping the truth that this phenomenon was entangled with my very existence. That I took a breath and turned back toward the door. I needed to know what was waiting under this storm. Without another moment's pause, I yanked open the door and stepped into the roiling storm, rain drenching my skin. I didn't look back that I rushed toward the woods, every step pounding against the earth, driven by uncertainty. But as I plunged deeper into the dark embrace of the trees, a thought flickered in my mind: had I truly escaped, or had I simply stepped into another layer of a darkness that had never fully let go of me? I may never know the answers, or if they would help mend the pieces of what's been lost. But one thing was for certain: the storm had awakened something deep within, and I could feel it rising as I pressed forward. That I didn't look back even as the laughter continued to echo behind me, a haunting reminder of the story still unfolding. In the silence of the woods, punctuated only by rain and splintering thunder, questions lingered like shadows, never fully vanishing into the light.